Once upon a time, nestled in a creepy forest, stood an isolated village. Hidden from the world's prying eyes, it was a place of mystery and intrigue. Enter Yuvraj and Yase, two intrepid souls drawn towards the unknown. Their journey, bathed in the warm hues of adventure, contrasted starkly with the chilling aura of their destination. Jase's grandparents, the village's inhabitants, unknowingly rested in the heart of the uncanny. The village, cut off from the rest of the world, held eerie secrets waiting to be unraveled. As they stepped into the village, a chill ran down their spines. Yuvraj and Jase could sense the unusual silence, a silence so profound it was almost deafening. The villagers' eyes, filled with wariness and a hint of fear, followed them as they walked down the narrow cobblestone streets. The air was thick, heavy with a sense of dread that seemed to hover over the quaint houses and the ancient trees. Shaking off the strange unease, Yuvraj and Yase tried to convince themselves that it was merely the nerves, the result of the stories they had heard about this secluded village. They laughed, they joked, attempting to dispel the growing tension. But the laughter seemed hollow. The jokes fell flat. The village, with its old-world charm and eerie silence, was a paradox that was hard to comprehend. Even as they tried to ignore it, the eeriness of the village was too palpable to ignore. Nightfall brought with it an unsettling symphony of strange noises. Yuvraj and Yase, two friends daring enough to venture into this secluded village, found themselves jolted from the realm of dreams by a chorus of distant howls. These were not the familiar sounds of the forest. They were primal, guttural, and they echoed through the still air, causing the hair on their necks to stand on end. The howls seemed to be carried on the wind, weaving their way through the gnarled branches of the ancient trees, and seeping through the cracks of the old wooden house where they sought refuge. Then, just as abruptly as they began, the howls ceased, replaced by an eerie whispering that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere, all at once. It was a language they couldn't comprehend, yet it filled them with a dread they could not ignore. As the night wore on, their fear heightened. The comforting blanket of darkness was now a curtain of uncertainty, hiding things their minds dared not imagine. They saw shadows flitting across the room, tall and menacing, moving in ways that defied logic. The flickering candlelight only served to distort these apparitions, making them appear even more grotesque. Every creak of the wooden floor, every rustle of the leaves outside, every whisper of the wind through the eaves seemed amplified. Their senses were heightened, every nerve on edge. Their minds played tricks on them, turning every sound into a potential threat, every shadow into an unseen predator. Yet they were trapped, unable to escape the village or the overwhelming fear that gripped them. They huddled together, their eyes wide open, their hearts pounding in their chests like a relentless drum. This was no ordinary night, and they were not alone. They could feel it, a presence, invisible yet palpable, watching them from the shadows. Their hearts pounded as they wondered what lurked in the darkness. The break of dawn revealed unsettling evidence of the night's horrors. As the first light of day broke through the eerie darkness, the village, which had been a picture of tranquility, now bore the scars of a night filled with terror. The friends, Yuvraj and Yase, began their day with a chilling discovery. Etched deeply into the wooden doors of the cottages were claw marks, too large and savage to belong to any known creature of the forest. A cold shiver ran down their spines as they traced the marks with their fingers, the brutal strength of the creature that had caused them, becoming terrifyingly real. Scattered around the village were footprints, an ominous trail left by the nocturnal visitor. These were no ordinary footprints, they were grotesquely large and bore a striking resemblance to those of a human, yet were distorted and animalistic. The sight of these sent a wave of fear through the friends, their hearts pounding in their chests like war drums. It was as if the quiet village had transformed overnight into a chilling crime scene. The villagers, however, remained eerily silent, their faces etched with a fear that they dared not voice. Their tight-lipped demeanor only served to heighten the unease, their eyes darting nervously to the claw marks and footprints. It was as if they were guarding a dark secret, a truth too horrifying to reveal. Their silence was a deafening roar in the ears of Yuvraj and Yase, each unspoken word a chilling testament to the terror that gripped the village. As the day wore on, the horrifying evidence of the night's horrors became increasingly hard to ignore. The friends could no longer deny the creeping dread that had been gnawing at them. The peaceful village they had come to visit was now a haunting maze of fear and mystery. The claw marks, the footprints, the villagers' silence, it all pointed to something far more sinister than they had ever imagined. The friends were now convinced that something sinister was at play. The horrifying truth unveiled itself under the full moon's light. As the silvery glow of the moon seeped through the skeletal trees, a chilling spectacle unfolded before Yuvraj and Jaze's eyes. One of the villagers, a figure they had seen earlier, swathed in the cloak of an ordinary man, began to transfigure. His body contorted violently, his face twisted in an agonizing display. Shadows danced on his form as his body morphed into something that was no longer human, a monstrous, fearsome werewolf. The beast stood tall, its silhouette a grotesque mockery of a man. The transformation was complete. It let out a chilling howl that echoed through the silent village, a terrifying testament to the horrifying truth they had just witnessed. The friends stood rooted to the spot, the blood in their veins turning to ice. The horrifying reality of their situation descended upon them, enveloping them in a cloak of dread. As the echoes of the beast's howl faded into the night, the village's eerie silence returned. The friends looked around, their eyes finally seeing the villagers for what they truly were, prisoners of fear, held captive by the horrifying creature that now stood in their midst. Their silence was not born out of hostility, but out of terror. The villagers were victims living in the shadow of a monstrous predator. The chilling realization hit the friends like a cold gust of wind. The village was not just an isolated place in the middle of a creepy forest, it was a prison of fear. The villagers weren't just distant and unwelcoming. They were terrified, living day by day under the constant threat of the werewolf. As the full moon continued to shine, casting long, menacing shadows, the horrifying truth of the village was laid bare. The friends understood now why the villagers had been so silent, so distant. They were not just living in a creepy village, they were surviving in a world where horror was the norm. The village was not just creepy, it was home to a terrifying creature. With the break of dawn, Yuvraj and Jaze decided it was time to leave. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and orange. The eerie silence of the night had given way to the soft chirping of morning birds, but the tranquility was deceptive. The fear that had gripped their hearts the previous night was still fresh, chilling their bones. They made their way to Yase's grandparents' house, the old wooden structure standing defiantly against the test of time. The elderly couple was waiting for them, their faces etched with worry. The friends could see the relief in their eyes as they walked in unscathed. Without uttering a word, they understood the silent communication of love and concern. A farewell was imminent, but this was no ordinary goodbye. This was a fearful farewell, a parting from a place that had revealed to them a secret so terrifying that it would haunt them forever. They embraced Yase's grandparents, their hearts heavy with the promise they were about to make. "We won't tell anyone," Yuvraj said, his voice barely a whisper. Yase nodded, his determination mirrored in his eyes. The village's secret, the existence of the werewolf, would remain hidden from the world. It was a burden they were willing to carry, a promise they intended to keep. As they stepped out of the house, the forest seemed to close in around them. The trees whispered in the wind, their leaves rustling like soft whispers. They could feel the eyes of the werewolf on them, its presence palpable even in the light of day. The path leading out of the village that once seemed welcoming now appeared daunting, a labyrinth leading them away from the known to the unknown. The journey back was quiet, their minds filled with the terror of the night before. Every rustle, every shadow seemed to morph into the monstrous creature they had encountered. The fear was a constant companion, a reminder of the horrifying truth they had stumbled upon. Even as the village disappeared from their rearview mirror, they could still feel the eerie presence of the werewolf. It was as if it had left an indelible mark on their souls, a chilling memory that would forever be a part of them. Their visit to the creepy village had turned into a horrifying adventure they would never forget. The echo of the werewolf's howl lingered in their ears, a haunting melody that would forever remind them of their fearful farewell.